Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about triceps and a number of reasons why most of us could stand to focus on our triceps quite a bit more. And when I say focusing on the triceps, I don't mean do endless amounts of 6 different types of extensions. Extensions certainly can be included in there and probably should be included in there, although they need to be picked a little bit carefully. When I say triceps, I'm talking about a wider variety of big movements along with carefully selected types of extensions. And a number of reasons why. Number one, for a lot of people, the triceps are a limit on their bench press. And a reason they're a limit on the bench press is because a lot of very basic minimalist training programs, including some I have put out, including some that are very, very popular, right, that many people have used to build a strength base, only use pressing. Right? They're generally bench press, overhead press, things like that. They only use pressing to build a base. And just these basic chest and shoulder presses, while they do develop the triceps, they do not maximally develop the triceps. Right? They don't maximally develop them. And accordingly, a lot of people who go on these very basic strength training programs tend to develop tricep weaknesses as they come along. They tend to develop them. And for many people, structurally, triceps are an extremely important muscle group, particularly if you're not built to bench press. And I'm not saying this doesn't apply to even the best benchers in the world, because you'll find most of the best benchers in the world do a lot of tricep work, including raw benchers. But if you have longer arms, like I do, for example, triceps become more important because the longer your arms are, oftentimes we can't do really wide grip benching as well. It chews up our shoulders more. And therefore, we are generally forced to go with a slightly closer grip, if not a full close grip. So what does that mean? That means the triceps get used more. And the triceps get used to a longer range of motion through the lockout as a result. And that's a big part of it. So for, again, a lot of people, just anatomically, a heavy focus on triceps is going to be required to develop a bigger bench. They tend to get neglected in a lot of basic programs. All right. On top of that, let's come over and let's talk about the guys who actually care about how they look, not just strength. All right. Triceps, the biggest muscle in the arm. It is considerably bigger than the biceps. The tricep is approximately somewhere, depending upon the person, 30 to 50% larger than your bicep in terms of total muscle fibers that are there. In other words, it accounts for more of your arm than your bicep will. All these guys will focus on their biceps all the time. But for someone who really wants big arms and is chasing big arms, well, quite frankly, triceps are going to be of more use to you. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, you would want both. Right? You would want both. If your goal is to have really big arms, well, you really need to focus on both. But a lot of guys do tend to neglect the triceps a little bit more. And I know this is cliche. This is something people have been saying in every magazine, every YouTube channel, everything for years and years and years. But for a lot of guys, it doesn't sink in. Tricep is the biggest muscle in the arm. Okay? If your goal is to have the biggest arms possible, and particularly from the side, bigger triceps are where your focus should be. So you have those reasons. Then when you start looking at volume data, there are studies out there that when they look really closely at volume, what do they find? Maximum volume on triceps, as far as developing maximum hypertrophy, the volume threshold tends to be a little higher on triceps than a lot of the muscles of the upper body. And in fact, the volumes to where you start regressing, because there's a point where if you start doing too much volume, you regress. You do start to regress. You don't gain as much muscle. And there's plenty of volume studies out there looking at that stuff also. And we know where those thresholds are. For triceps, that threshold is higher. Triceps can handle more volume, and they can benefit from more volume than the other muscles of the upper body. Again, from the few studies that have looked at it. And if anyone curious, quads seem to be the same thing with the lower body. Which again, incidentally, quads are a very important muscle. Very important muscle. But the point here being the size of the muscle doesn't seem to be the factor. A lot of people will say, oh, well, smaller muscles or bigger muscles need more or less. No, it's not actually true. Because when we start looking, triceps are not bigger than several of the other muscles of the upper body. They're smaller. Right? And they're about the same size as most of the others, about the same size of your lats, your traps, your pecs. Those are all about the same size as your triceps. The volume threshold's a little bit lower. But then come back over to that point about chest pressing. That's why chest pressing is never going to give you the best tricep activation. Not that a lot of chest presses don't hammer it. Dips hit it really hard. Close grip pressing hits it hard. That the volume thresholds are a little bit different. All right, so you're going to benefit from coming in and doing more tricep work just from a total potential hypertrophy perspective. So again, 3 reasons right up front why we should train triceps. They're very likely for many people's structures to be a bench press weakness. A lot of basic strength training programs neglect them a little bit in terms of the volume. They need more volume for maximum hypertrophy than the other muscles of the upper body. And again, there's data out there to suggest this. And they're the biggest muscle in the arms. So for guys who are chasing sleeve hugging guns, triceps really should be your focus. It really should be. And again, they can handle and need slightly more volume. So giving them a little bit more love is a good idea. So what do we mean by training triceps? Well, you guys see me doing a few different movements in this video. Doing some tricep extensions and things. Okay, tricep extensions, not a bad idea. However, the problem with a basic skull crusher and some of them, they're tough on your elbows. Okay, they're tough on your elbows. You may not be able to do them a long time. You can do different sorts of extensions that de-stress the elbows. Rolling extensions do, but they hit the long head less. If you want to hit the lateral and medial head really hard, those work. If you want to hit all the heads, anything to where you bring the bar a little bit behind your head, like the laying extension I'm doing here, it's coming behind my head a bit. We're getting a better stretch on the long head, right? Which tends to get neglected a little bit on pressing, on a lot of presses, right? This will help you finish off and fully develop your triceps. Do plenty of closed grip benching. You could do dips. You could do any form of closed grip pressing works triceps more though, whether it's a flat bench, decline, incline, overhead pressing. Floor pressing is great. I was demonstrating at the start of this some rep work on a closed grip floor press. Adding chains to any of these movements also is extremely effective for triceps. So you take any of these presses that I mentioned, you throw chains on top of it, even better. Even better. Dips, if you can handle it. A lot of people get beat up by dips in the long term. They're not viable as a long-term exercise, unfortunately, for a lot of people's structures. And just for longevity in general sometimes. But they can be a phenomenal tricep exercise. Absolutely can be. They're way up there. But it's just one of the options you have available. But again, lots of closer grip pressing, a lot of chain pressing, JM presses, which again is really a form of extension. It's a hybrid. And carefully selected tricep extensions, right? These are exercises you can do in addition to things like high rep band press down to build the tendons. Right? These are all good options in combination, meaning don't just pick one of them, but you probably need to be doing 2 or 3 of these things at any given time. Because again, they can benefit from the volume. And again, keeping in mind the tricep has more than one function, so a few different angles is a very good idea. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.